Did Brad Marchand really compare Oliver Wahlstrom to David Pastrnak? Yes. Yes, he did.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoked B. Today is Tuesday, December 17th, and I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your day. It's free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube, and is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by the College Football Playoffs. They're here, and you don't want to miss a moment of the action. The College Football Playoff is presented by Allstate, and it begins with 4 first-round games, December 20th and 21st on ESPN, ABC, TNT, and Max. Thank you so much to the everydayers out there who continually turn into the episode. If you missed yesterday's, please go back and check it out. Today, we're going to be discussing new Bruin Oliver Wahlstrom, his new number, his outlook for the team, when he might play. We'll also preview tonight's game against the Calgary Flames and update the Eastern Conference power rankings. Before we get into all that, a quick reminder, you can find the podcast on social media at Locked NHL Bruins. You can find me, my hockey thoughts, dad jokes at Ian C. McLaren. If you're new to the podcast, I am a lifelong Boston Bruins fan. Been covering this team for various outlets for about 20 years now. Was a full-time hockey news writer for The Score up here in Toronto, and I've been hosting this podcast since 2019 from the comfort of my home in Guelph, Ontario, just about an hour west of Toronto, where Matt Poitras played junior hockey, among others. And we are getting ready for a 9 p.m. Eastern start tonight against the Calgary Flames. The Bruins need to build off that big win over Vancouver the other night with Edmonton on the horizon before they head home for the holidays. And we'll soon see whether or not Oliver Wahlstrom will get into the lineup for tonight's game against the Flames. He did practice with his new team on Monday after being scooped up off waivers from the New York Islanders, an early Christmas present for Don Sweeney. And he skated yesterday on the third line, swapping in and out with Mark Kastelik. The Bruins have 14 forwards on the trip currently, with Mark McLaughlin, Tyler Johnson rotating in and out on the fourth line as well. The top 6 not yet impacted, although it's possible we could see Wahlstrom up in the top 6 at some point, especially if the captain's assessment of his game comes true. I mentioned on yesterday's podcast, everydayers will remember how Brad Marchand reached out to Wahlstrom after he was picked up off waivers, and he was pretty excited about that, and he said it was cool to hear from the captain. He is from Maine. He said he grew up watching Marchand play, was a big fan of the black and gold when they won the Stanley Cup in 2011. He knows Pastrnak a bit too. Hasn't really sunk in yet, but it's a dream come true, he said, to be back home where friends and family live and to be able to put on the Spoked B. He said it hit him pretty hard when he was putting on his jersey. A pretty cool moment to wear the Boston Bruins logo, and these quotes are via Connor Ryan of Boston.com. Now, of Wahlstrom, the Bruins captain, Brad Marchand, said he's a great shooter, a very dangerous shot, almost like a big pasta, the way he can shoot a puck. Again, Wahlstrom said he hadn't heard that, but he called those comments kind of jokingly outrageous. He said, I mean, pasta is pasta, but obviously the shot's there. He's been working on a lot of other things in his game that maybe help him get to those areas as well. He has talent. He's a big body. He has scored 36 times at the NHL level. And when you look at players, young players, you assess them kind of based on their breakout threshold. This is kind of a dauber hockey thing that I always look at. And it's basically they looked back over history, and pretty much you can know what a player is going to be based on the first couple hundred NHL regular season games. Average size forwards between 5'10 and 6'2, between 171 and 214 pounds, take about 200 games to hit their breakout threshold at the NHL level, meaning if they haven't broken out by that point, then perhaps it's not going to happen. They should show that they are fully developed. The players should be comfortable with the pace of the game, the power of opposing players. It's pretty much an 80-20 rule. 80% follow this system, 20% are the exception. Sometimes they hit early, sometimes they hit a bit later. Now, if you look at Oliver Wahlstrom as a right winger who is currently 24 years old, he's played 220 games at the NHL level. He's 6'2", 205 pounds. So pretty much right near the top of the breakout threshold range here in terms of size. Sometimes it takes bigger defensemen and bigger forwards, maybe closer to 400 games in order to really find their game. Bigger forwards who play a power game it can take a bit longer to reach that threshold. So all that to say, 200 games, if a guy hits and plays a full season, pretty much midway through the third season. So could be around January of that third full season where a guy hits his stride. Now, Wahlstrom has been limited by injury. He's only played a season high 73 games. That was back in 2021-22, limited to 35 games. The season after that, 32 games last year and 27 games this season. So it's kind of hard to make that assessment, but the tools are there, and he still has the potential to be a hit here at the NHL level based on his skill set, his size. There was the clip going around yesterday of him, being engaged in a line brawl with the Islanders at some point. It's fair to say that there could be something there, especially with the change of scenery, playing closer to home. Dauber Hockey still has him with about a 42-point upside, second line potential here heading into this season. So all that to say, Brad Marchand's really high on this guy. Don Sweeney, Bruins management, saw enough there to put in a waiver claim and to put themselves on the hook for the remainder of his $1 million contract for this season. There's some control there as well. He'll only be an RFA. Fully worth seeing what the Bruins have in Oliver Wahlstrom. And again, he's a great shooter. He's got some skills. And I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do in a Bruins uniform, wearing, I should note, number 71 that was previously worn by Taylor Hall. So that's, the Bruins are pumping this up. They highlighted that nice move that he made at TD Garden when he was a kid 15 years ago. A 9-year-old Wahlstrom went viral for pulling off a move. They're giving him a, fairly prominent number. It looks as though they're really invested in this acquisition, and we'll see if it pays off here as the season goes on and how Wahlstrom's addition affects the rest of the lineup. Right now, the Bruins, kind of a bubble team, and we will update the Eastern Conference power rankings heading into tonight's game against the Calgary Flames here as the podcast continues. Today's episode is sponsored by Built Rewards, and if you're a renter, you need to listen up. This is a total game changer. Thanks to Built, you can now earn points on rent payments just like you do with groceries or travel. Paying rent now comes with serious perks, and it's completely free to join. Earn valuable Built points on your rent and everyday spending at no extra cost, and you can redeem those points for flights, hotel stays, even future rent payments. Start earning points on rent you're already paying by going to joinbuilt.com/lockedonnhl. That's joinbilt.com/lockedonnhl. And make sure to use our link so they know that we sent you. Don't wait. Start earning rewards with Built today. The World Series, Super Bowl, Stanley Cup, the world's top athletes get to play in these top level sporting events thanks to one thing: teamwork. And teamwork can also protect your financial legacy and your family's future. Select Quote's licensed insurance agents are the perfect teammates when shopping for customized, affordable life insurance. They can find you the right policy to keep your financial legacy safely in your family's end zone. All you have to do is check out Select Quote, and you can get some of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, helping over 2 million customers find over $700 billion in coverage since 1985. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/lockedonnhl. Go to selectquote.com/lockedonnhl today to get started. That's selectquote.com/lockedonnhl. Thank you so much once again for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine, free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And on Tuesdays, we update the power rankings to see where exactly the Bruins fit in the Eastern Conference with regards specifically to what we care about most, the playoff picture. We looked earlier on at the Atlantic Division. Now we're expanding it because there's implications all over the board for playoffs. As we know that there's 3 guaranteed playoff positions for each division and then 2 wildcard spots that can come from any division. Right now, if you look at total points, you see the Bruins are 6th in the Eastern Conference. It's a bit deceiving, though, because they've played 32 games. Teams like Tampa Bay, who are only 1 point behind the Bruins, have played 4 fewer games. So you really have to look at point percentage, which is the percentage of points earned so far this season. The Bruins have played 32 games. That's 64 potential points. They've earned 35, meaning they have a 547 point percentage. There's a few teams we can probably write off right off the top. You look at the Montreal Canadiens, the Buffalo Sabres, the Detroit Red Wings. These are teams that are pretty far down the Eastern Conference rankings, and it's going to be a huge climb for any of those teams to jump back into the playoff spot. The Sabres specifically have not won in their last 10 games, continuing to disappoint. We've seen over the past several years a clear split between the top 4 teams in the Atlantic, the bottom 4 teams. The one team that is up there at the moment is the Ottawa Senators, and that's because they've gone 7-2-1 over their past 10, and our old friend Linus Ullmark is really carrying a heavy load there. There's 6 teams under 500 right now in the East, and we're going to take them out of the running right now for playoff spot. That would be Montreal, Buffalo, Detroit. This is going from bottom to top. Columbus, the New York Islanders, and the Pittsburgh Penguins. After that, there's teams that are pretty close. And you look at the Philadelphia Flyers, currently in 10th. The New York Rangers in 9th. Those 2 teams, you probably give an edge to the Rangers, but they really seem lost at the moment. And that means there's 5 Atlantic teams currently in the top 8 in terms of point percentage. One of them is the Boston Bruins. The Ottawa Senators are currently 8th after going, again, 7-2-1, 533 point percentage. They're 3 points back of the Bruins, but they have 2 games in hand. The Bruins right now slot in 7th. Technically, they're 3rd in the Atlantic, but if you look at point percentage, they'd be in a wild card spot with the Senators at the moment, and they'd be in line to take on, well, the Toronto Maple Leafs in round 1, which, as fate would have it, that always seems to happen. The top teams right now, you have Tampa in 6th with a 607 point percentage. The Florida Panthers in 5th with a 625 point percentage. Toronto in 4th with a 645 point percentage. Carolina at 650. The Devils at 652. And then the Washington Capitals, even though they lost last night to Dallas, they are still the clear-cut top team in the East with a 733 point percentage and a division high plus 36 goal differential. In fact, that's tied for the league lead with the Winnipeg Jets. Now, speaking of goal differential, the Bruins are the only team in the East currently in a playoff spot with a negative goal differential. And with those, even with the win the other night over Vancouver, because of those lopsided losses last week, they're still at minus 19. Only the Penguins and the Canadiens have worse goal differentials than the Bruins in the East. And in the NHL as a whole, only they're level with Anaheim. And the Blackhawks, Penguins, Sharks, Predators, and Canadiens all have worst goal differentials. Now, it was at minus 21, I believe, when Jim Montgomery was let go. It's currently at minus 19. So there is some improvements, but if you look at the top 16 teams in the NHL, there's 3 with negative goal differentials, and that's Boston, Calgary, tonight's opponent. They're minus 11, and the Colorado Avalanche, somewhat surprisingly, and that can be chalked up to their early season goaltending issues. All that to say, the Bruins, yeah, they're in the playoff mix, but they're clearly not one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference. There's probably 6 teams right now that you could look at as Stanley Cup contenders: Washington, New Jersey, Toronto, Florida, Carolina, and Tampa. Boston, Ottawa will be duking it out with Philly, the Rangers, maybe Pittsburgh, and the Islanders for a playoff spot. Now, when it comes to the underlying stats, the Bruins, overall, in terms of shot attempt differential, they're 18th in the NHL, below 500. Shot differential, this is at 5-on-5, where the majority of the game is played. They're below 50% in terms of shot attempt differential. They're also not that strong of a team when it comes to high danger chance differential either. They rank 7th in that position, 5-on-5. So they're generating high danger chances. They need to make good on that more regularly in order to get an edge, especially when they don't have the benefit of carrying 2 elite level goaltenders. Linus Ullmark had his struggles early on, but he's really rounded into form. Joonas Korpisalo had been the best of all of them. But right now, the Bruins certainly missing that two-headed elite level goaltending. If there's one area where they're kind of getting some bad luck, it's in that shooting percentage category. 5-on-5, they rank 26th. So if that could rise a bit, if they can get their 5-on-5 scoring maybe up to 10%, start capitalizing on power play opportunities, that will only help to solidify their standing as a playoff team. So those are quick power rankings this week. The Bruins, 7th in the Eastern Conference. They're currently a wild card team, and we'll see if they can hold on. Road trip got off to a rocky start. They rebounded in Vancouver, but 2 tough games in Alberta coming up, beginning with tonight's game against the Calgary Flames. And we'll preview that one here as the podcast continues. Get in on this week's NFL action with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL and America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Put $5 down on the over-under for tonight's Bruins-Flames game, which is set at 5.5. If you hit, you'll get $150 in bonus bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, Bruins, Flames, tonight in Calgary. Nikita Zadorov and Elias Lindholm returning to the arena where they played large parts of their careers prior to both being traded last year to Vancouver, respectively, and then signing with the Boston Bruins. The Flames, 15, 11, and 5 so far this season. The Bruins and Flames have played once already this year, Boston winning in Boston by a score of 4-3 after Brad Marchand scored late in overtime, and the Bruins pulled off a comeback in that one, as they had been down, they were up 3-1 in that one, let Calgary score 2 third period goals, and then Marchand won it in overtime. The Flames are, a pretty good team. I did mention they have a negative goal differential. They have gone only 3-5-2 over their past 10 games. They did beat the Florida Panthers most recently, which is pretty impressive. The Bruins 6-4 over their past 10, coming off a win over the Vancouver Canucks. In terms of team offense, both teams sputtering a little bit. The Flames averaging 2.61 goals per game. The Bruins are at 2.56. Flames are ranked 26th, where the Bruins are ranked 29th. The Flames are allowing 3.03 goals per game. That's 15th in the NHL. The Bruins 3.16, 22nd in the NHL. The Bruins power play is up to 31st in the NHL. Woo! Their penalty kill is ranked 22nd. Calgary's power play is 17th. Their penalty kill is 29th. So it's an opportunity for the Bruins to continue to rack up some wins on the power play. Both teams' save percentage below 900. The Bruins are at 886. And the Flames are at 897. Dan Vladar, our old friend, Dustin Wolf, the goaltending tandem there. It was Wolf who played in Boston. We'll see who goes tonight. Swayman coming off a win over Vancouver. They might go with Korpisalo in order to save Swayman for Thursday against the much more offensively gifted Edmonton Oilers. The Flames are led in scoring by Jonathan Huberdeau, Nazem Kadri, and then some younger guys, Rasmus Andersson, Mackenzie Weegar, always dangerous from the back end. Huberdeau, 6 points, 3 goals, and 3 assists over his past 5 games. The Bruins are led by David Pastrnak, who's got 8 points over his past 5, including 2 goals and 6 assists. Marchand averaging 1 goal a game over his past 5. Should be a pretty good game tonight. Again, a 9 p.m. Eastern start between these two teams, the second of 2 meetings, barring a Stanley Cup final meeting, which, let's be honest, probably not likely to happen. We'll see if Oliver Wahlstrom gets a look in the Bruins lineup tonight. It might be a touch too early since he only had 1 practice, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. Expect Tyler Johnson to take a seat. We'll see if they take out Mark McLaughlin although he is coming off his first goal of his NHL career as a member of the Boston Bruins. So we'll see here what the lineup is. If there's any big news throughout the day, be sure to be subscribed to the YouTube account for Locked On Boston Bruins Shorts. I'll be back probably tomorrow morning for a quick recap podcast, all the storylines, stats, and signals from this one before heading off to Ottawa to be with my mom for her cancer treatment. And please do check out the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast for all the latest tips and news for you to get an edge in your league from steal and flip over there. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day. Please do take care of yourselves, friends. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you here again on the next episode of Locked On Boston Bruins.